Today's story is called The Opera Ghost of Crimson Lake. It happened years ago in a quiet suburb of New Orleans, where a narrow bayou snaked its way behind rows of old houses. In front of my grandmother's creaky wooden home was a murky lake that locals called Crimson Lake. The name came from the red lilies that bloomed each spring, though kids used to say it was for the blood that once tainted its water. Right beside the lake stood a moss-covered stone sculpture that had once been a fountain. I used to climb it with my cousins, poking at tadpoles and chasing dragonflies. On summer evenings, the lake turned a deep green, the water so dense and dark that nothing beneath the surface was visible. Out in the lake, 3 wooden platforms jutted above the surface, relics of a time long gone. Grandma told us they once supported a gazebo where a wealthy sugar baron hosted summer concerts. He would bring musicians and guests out to the platform to dine and be serenaded under the stars. One hot afternoon, we gathered around old Mr. Eli, a retired stagehand who lived 2 doors down. Eli was in his 80s, thin as reeds and always fanning himself with an old playbill. He saw us loitering near the lake and waved us over, promising a story about Crimson Lake, the real reason it was feared. Back in the 30s, Eli began. A traveling opera troupe arrived and set up shop right here in town. They had a soprano named Miss Delilah, a real stunner. She played the Huadun role, you know, the feisty, flirtatious heroine in Chinese opera. Except Delilah wasn't Chinese, but boy, she wore the paint and dress like she was born for it. Eli's eyes gleamed as he described her. She caught the attention of old Mr. Barron, yes, the same sugar tycoon. He invited the troupe to perform on the lake platform. That night, under lantern light, Delilah sang like an angel. But the Baron wanted more. He cornered her mid-performance, drunk on power and bourbon. The troupe master, a sharp-eyed woman named May, had warned Delilah. Suspecting the Baron's intentions, Delilah carried a pair of sewing scissors hidden in her sleeve. As the Baron made his move, she pushed him away and threatened him with the blade. But Baron didn't back off, Eli said. He laughed, grabbed the scissors and taunted her. With no choice left, Delilah hurled herself off the platform into Crimson Lake, vanishing into the depths. According to Eli, the Baron cried out, blaming her for the scuffle. He claimed she attacked him and ran with his ivory pendant, a family heirloom. People were suspicious, but fear of power kept them quiet. Troop members searched the lake, and after hours they found Delilah's lifeless body. Her face was swollen with rage and grief, eyes wide open. May tried to close them but failed, whispering she can't rest. Not like this. Baron dismissed the warning and offered the troop silver to move along. May took the money but left a parting curse. If a soul refuses to close its eyes, then truth will float, one way or another. Eli leaned in and said, they say the lake turned strange after that. Some say Delilah still sings there on moonless nights. He paused, then added with a whisper, especially when someone lies. We kids shivered as a breeze rustled the willows. The lake, calm and green, seemed to be listening. A few weeks after Mr. Eli's tale, strange things began to happen around Crimson Lake. It started subtly. First the fish. Every morning, more floated belly up along the edge, white and bloated, stinking in the humid air. The smell became unbearable. We had to close the windows even on hot days. Mr. Barron, who still owned the land near the lake, grew furious. He ordered workers to scoop out the carcasses and bury them in a pit behind the orchard. It was done quickly and without ceremony, but the smell lingered, and then came the frogs. Dozens of them emerged from the burial pit, giant toads with green glowing eyes. At night they croaked in unison and their sounds echoed like a chant. Worse, they attacked. Several townsfolk reported being bitten while walking too close to the water. Terrified, Baron hired a well-known mystic from Baton Rouge. The man arrived dressed in black robes, face hidden beneath a brimmed hat. He set up an altar near the lake, burned herbs, and chanted ancient words. He claimed a restless spirit had been bound to the lake and must not be disturbed. He placed 4 talismans under the old wooden piers at each compass point, instructing that they never be touched. The attack stopped immediately. The lake returned to eerie stillness. The frogs vanished. The smell cleared. But peace doesn't last forever. Years passed and Baron, older, more arrogant, returned to his vices. He tried to force himself on a young flower seller named Clara. She fled toward the lake, screaming. Baron and his men cornered her at the water's edge. "You've got nowhere to run," Baron sneered. "Better me than the ghost under there." At that moment, the sky cracked open. Rain fell like sheets of silver. Thunder boomed and the wind howled. It rained for 3 days straight. The lake rose. The talismans were swept away. And then the toads returned. On the third night, as floodwaters filled the barren estate, the mansion stood like an island in the rising lake. Furniture floated in drawing rooms. Portraits peeled from walls. Servants fled in droves. Baron remained, trapped upstairs, holding his toddler son and dragging Clara with him. She screamed, begging to be released, but Baron refused. Then from the lake came the sound of a woman singing. Soft. Haunting. A figure surfaced slowly from the dark waters, now lapping against the bedroom steps. Hair matted across her face. Thick stage paint smeared and cracked, but unmistakably an opera mask. Delilah. She floated toward them, her bloated face inches from Baron's. Her eyes were open, glistening with rage and strange charm. Her teeth, yellow, jagged, smiled. Baron howled. He shoved his son into Clara's arms and fought to push the specter away. But her skeletal fingers gripped his throat, pulling him under the murky flood. With a gurgle, he disappeared. Clara and the boy were found days later in the attic, soaked and shivering. Baron's corpse was recovered near the garden steps, mouth agape, a familiar ivory pendant clenched between his teeth. People whispered that justice had been done. Clara vanished soon after, taking the boy and the pendant. Some say she changed her name and raised the child far from town. That night, I told Mr. Eli's tale to my cousins under the same old willows. As the moon rose, I realized I had forgotten my fish trap near the lake. I crept back alone, the night air thick and still. And there, under the cypress tree, stood Mr. Eli. Alone. Smiling. In his hands, the pendant. He tossed it into the water, and green eyes blinked just below the surface. I ran. And now, dear listener, that's where we end our story tonight. Sleep tight, if you can.